Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Furr, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family, I'm cloud hired.
But I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
Welcome everyone. How are you all today? My name is Michael Gibbs and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I'm here with my Chief Marketing Officer, Alonzo Coleman. And today we're here to help you build your cloud computing career. Maybe you desire to get your first cloud architect job, or you're confused between the difference of a cloud architect versus a cloud engineer, or you're looking to get promoted in tech, or you're looking to determine which cloud certification you should or shouldn't do. Maybe you want to know what a cloud architect does, for example, or you'd like to learn about the cloud architect career. And that's why we're here, to guide you and help you build the absolute best cloud computing career you possibly can have. I've been working in tech now for actually over 25 years now, and I've had the opportunity to coach others and mentor others for the last 2 decades. I have graduates working at Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Cisco, Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, the British Broadcasting Company, Barclays Bank, and so many other wonderful companies. And you can too with the right training. And that's why we're here, to shave years of wasted time off of your career, to guide you so you can have an elite cloud computing career. And that's why we're here. So you can come on, ask us your career questions, and then we'll guide you. It kills me to see people that have spent years learning the wrong skills for the wrong job. For example, we have people that desire to become cloud architects, and they're learning Python and Linux and Terraform. And the cloud architect designs, presents, and sells. They don't code or configure any technology. And after spending thousands of dollars on the wrong boot camp and years learning all the wrong skills, the person goes on a cloud architect interview and they don't get hired because they have the skills for somebody else's career. And that's why we're here, because I want to get you hired. So please ask us your questions. And while we're waiting for people to be notified by YouTube and waiting for people to join, we have a special announcement today. Currently, for Memorial Day, not only can you get our award-winning Cloud Architect Career Development Program, but you can get our Tech Interviews Fundamentals Program 2 for 1 at the same price. So don't let this opportunity pass by. It'll be a life-changing career move for you. Not only do people get hired every single day from our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, but in the interview, the better your interview determines if you get hired or don't get hired. And almost all tech jobs have a $50,000 to $100,000 pay difference between the top person and the bottom paid person for the same position on the same team. And if that wasn't enough, you could get still an additional 10% off on this with the coupon code that's actually there, which of course Tyrone is going to put on the screen, but it's Memorial 2023. So make sure you take advantage of this special opportunity to get hired at a higher salary than others, and build a career that will change your life and change your family's life. So take advantage of the 2 for 1 Memorial Day special, our famous Cloud Architect Career Development Program, which got us ranked #1 in online cloud computing school by Stellar Business Awards, and take advantage of our truly amazing interview program for the same price with 10% off. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Also, I wanted to tell you on Thursday, join us completely free for the How to Become the Ultimate Cloud Architect webinar. We will cover the cloud architect job, the cloud architect career, all the things that you need to know. And you can even ask us questions face-to-face and live. Why do we do this webinar every Thursday? Well, we get a few hundred requests per day of people asking questions about their cloud architect career. And the reality is, we can't answer these questions in an email. We need to be able to talk to you. In order to architect your career, we got to be like a real architect. We got to ask you, who are you? Your goals, your dreams. We got to assess you. And from there, we can give you guidance. So come, it's completely free. People do try to book calls with me, and I've got an 18-week waiting list to book a session with me. It's $1,200 an hour, and there's still an 18-week wait. So please take advantage of the time that we're on free. We're on free now, and we're going to be free on Thursday. So take advantage of these questions at time and ask us your questions. But on Thursday, we can speak face-to-face if you desire. So ask us your questions in the chat box. Alonzo, why don't you say hello to everybody?
Well, as always, I'm so happy that everyone is able to make it, take time out of their busy schedule from all over the world. We always have people from Nigeria, New York, Canada, Cameroon, wherever you are. We are grateful to have you, and we are even more eager to help you get to your cloud career goals. So with all the things that we're able to do from a full scope of life cycle of what we can train, we talk about the tech, what it is, what it does when you would use it, applies those architectural concepts to real world business cases that you can work in with team building exercises or on your own with your own on-demand assignments that you have as well, because we provide everything that you need to be successful. And once you're done, we're able to vet you, because we will put you through that stringent process to make sure that you're competent, capable, and ready to go. Then we're going to help you formulate your resume, your brand, your LinkedIn presence, your interview skills. We provide that full suite that not many people, if anyone, does what we do. So we're happy to help you. Please answer your questions. Your first step towards your career starts today with the things that you have in your head that we can get out and help solve your problems with. So let's go.
So we'll be happy to answer your questions. And, here's the thing. In coaching others for more than 2 decades, it's very easy to see what it takes to get somebody hired. And here's the reason why. When you're a tech career specialist like me, I've had thousands, and by thousands, I mean thousands and thousands of questions with C-level executives working for big tech companies, with director level and VP level people, with, for example, with recruiters. We've interviewed thousands of employees, and we know exactly how to get you hired. And we get people hired every single day. So it looks like the first question's in. Let's answer your question. Obviously, please bring in more questions, because we want to make sure that you're in a position to have your best career. Big Jerry 23, I see you've got a new Elite bundle. What's the difference between that and your career development program? Well, Big Jerry 2023, there is a big difference, and I'll explain the difference. The Cloud Architect Career Development Program is an award-winning program which will get you your first cloud architect job. And like I said, whether you're at AWS or Azure or Google or Apple or Cisco or IBM or Deloitte and Accenture or Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I can go on, we've got students that graduated this program that are working as architects. But we want you to have the really best career. And here's the thing, Big Jerry. The cloud architect job has a lot of potential. The cloud architect job in reality is a position that truly sets you up for maximum long-term career success. And here's the reason why. While those engineers are coding and configuring and talking all tech to techies, as architects, we're in front of the C-suite. We present to the CIO, CFO, CEO, because we've got to convince them that they need to buy our solution. So we're very close to the C-suite. And Jerry, there's a lot of business in our job. And when we created the Elite Cloud Architect program, we decided to really maximize your career. So the Elite bundle has the Cloud Architect Career Development Program in it to get you your first cloud architect job. But we've added some really special things. We've added our Elite interview program. And in the Elite interview program, not only do we teach you how to interview, and we've got special private small batch interview classes, but you also have one-on-one sessions with Elite interview coaches. And these interview coaches could be executives from technology companies. It could be someone like me. It could be from executive coaches. And we're really there to truly maximize your income and help you negotiate an additional salary. And when you look at any big tech job, Jerry, there's a good $200,000 plus difference between the top and the bottom paid person. So in the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, we're here to get you hired, and we do so all the time. And that's why it's got that program. But now it's got our Elite interview program. Now, Big Jerry, we also include our business acumen, leadership, and executive package in this program. And I'm going to show you why. Because the Cloud Architect itself is an executive position, and that's why even we have basic business acumen in our career development program. If you want to really move on in tech, the real things to do are your business acumen, your communication skills, your executive presence. So this is a combination of the type of training you'd get in an MBA, plus the training you'd get past your MBA. So Big Jerry, when I transitioned from engineering to architecture, I took an MBA with a business acumen, and then I had about $100,000 more leadership skills, executive communication training, CXO relevancy, executive presence training. And that's what this training is. It's all of that business acumen, all of that leadership, all of that interview, and our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. So live training for 3 amazing programs. to make sure you get incredible jobs. And why? So we know, statistically speaking, and you can verify this on salary.com, that the average salary of a cloud architect is about $200,000 a year. But Big Jerry 23, the average salary with someone with business acumen is $553,000 a year. And you can check that for salary.com as well. And that's exactly in line with the jobs we see. So the Elite Architect program is designed to get you your first cloud architect job and then give you the skills for 2 or 3 years in, where you can move into principal architect roles like I did, for example. And a principal architect role can pay several $100,000 more per year than a regular architect role. It's designed to help you after your architecture career transition into some bigger business jobs, such as a director or senior director. So we're trying to add a couple $100,000 extra to your salary. For example, here's a position at Cisco Systems for a senior director. You can see the average pay is about $527,000 a year. But you can also see that that pay range is $417 to $698. So what are we really fighting for in this Elite Architect program? We're fighting for you to get those $400,000 and $500,000 jobs a few years in by giving you these skills. You can see a principal architect at Amazon, and Amazon's kind of the lowest payer of all the architect companies, but their average pay is $372. But you note that $291 to $491. And that's going to be really dependent upon your sales skills, how much business you can close, your leadership skills, your interview skills. You know, for example, here's another one. We've got a senior director at Palo Alto. Average pay is $540, for example. And you've got the pay range of $425 to $709. So these are the kind of things that we're fighting for in this program. Here you've got a principal architect position at Google that pays on average of $508. But you can see that pay range is $394 to $677. Now, I was a principal architect in less than 2 years. And why? It's because I focused on these leadership skills, these executive presence skills, these sales skills. So that's the bundle. The bundle is our award-winning Cloud Architect Career Development Program with our truly exceptional Elite Interview Program, with 3 private sessions with some of the world's greatest tech career coaches, and then a program that has business acumen. And, you know, we don't run a program like others. You know, we're not some engineer that never worked as an architect. This is the seriousness of the people. We have working cloud architects, working AWS solution architects, working application architects in our program, working enterprise architects in our program that are helping, working network architects in this program. We have PhD business school professors to make sure our people have business acumen. We have VPs and directors over at major tech companies coming in to educate our program. And that's what's in this program. And Big Jerry 23, it'll change your life. I highly recommend it. And I'm really, really proud of this program. We just launched it, and it truly, it's a combination of my life's work. It's a combination of 25 years experience, well over, $300,000 of education. It's the combination of thousands of books read. It's the culmination of leading business councils, of executives at technology companies, working for technology companies. And I know it'd be truly incredible for you. Great question, Jerry. Alonzo, if you want to add anything there.
Mike, I mean, what can I say behind that? I think we have a full scope of everything that meets, touches on and exceeds expectations when it comes to realizing cloud architectural goals. Again, we talk, and we've had a lot of exterior and interior discussions between Chris, myself, and you regarding what a lot of these boot camps advertise versus what the realistic expectation and outcome is. They teach you an aspect of a cloud service provider, but they do not add the all-encompassing requirements needed to be successful, let alone get your foot in the door. It's more than AWS. It's more than GCP. It's more than Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It's more than Azure and any of these other cloud service providers that provide great service, I'm sure. But other than that, when you have to understand and ascertain the needs of a client, you don't go to just one specific source. You have to look at a broad scope of options that best meet their requirements, not your scope and what you can interpret for them. So we make sure that that doesn't happen. We make sure that you are more than that, and you're going to be a competent, capable, and global response to a much needed need of becoming cloud architects. From Pernell Fuller, to what extent architects need to understand Kubernetes?
Now, if you're going to design it, you need to understand it.
Yeah.
So how do you design a cluster? Where are the cluster nodes going to be? Where are the worker nodes going to be? You have to understand the architecture of Kubernetes. Now, you're not going to configure it because architects don't touch the technology for now, but you need to know how it's designed, and you need to know how to design the clusters. And then as it comes to design, what are the trade-offs if I use a pre-made cluster Kubernetes service like EKS or AKS, the Azure one or the Google one or the Cisco one, or the Google Kubernetes service? What are the implications if you design your own and run it across multiple clouds? Pernell, it's all about design, 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 and more design. How do you design it to meet your customers' expectations? Same thing for everything. How about you, Alonzo?
Same thing, Mike. What we stress is that you have to understand what the tech is, what it does, when you would use it, and be able to apply those concepts for business transformative solutions for the organization. If you don't know what it is when they need this type of service, then that renders your presence inert. We need people who are competent, capable, and if you don't know that answer, then you go and tell that client, I don't have that answer right now, but rest assured that will be provided to you, and in the multiple solutions or options that best suit your needs in a short and long-term scenario, because they need to know that you're competent, capable, and able to get things done within their time frame. From Young Fuego, I've seen people in other tech sectors like cybersecurity, DevOps, and software engineering being able to work more than one job. Is that possible in cloud architecting?
Young Fuego, I'm going to keep you out of prison. It's not possible in any technology career. If you tried to be a DevOps engineer for 2 publicly traded companies at the same time, you will be fired, you will be sued, and potentially put in prison. You cannot do this, period. There are non-disclosure agreements that you sign with any company when you join a real job. And there are also, if they're publicly traded and some information gets pulled from one customer to the other, that's insider information. So you can't do this in any real job. The only time you could ever do this is if you were doing, basically speaking, like freelance work for a company such as Upwork or Fiverr. But no, you can't do this in DevOps. You can't do it in cybersecurity. And you can't do it in software engineering. Now, Young Fuego, why are people doing that for these DevOps kind of jobs? They're doing it because 2 problems are existing. One is the engineers are paid so little. And the other reason that they're doing it is a lot of people in tech just don't work. For example, you could walk around a technology company and see 100 people, and you could see 10 people that are working. And the other 90 out of the 100, you don't know what they even do for a living. And if you actually ask them questions, they don't know what they're doing for a living either. I know it's pretty scary to see this. So Young Fuego, 25, when I was younger, there was a movie called Office Space. I highly recommend you see it. Jennifer Aniston was in it. A bunch of funny people were seeing it. And basically, you had an employee that was fired but was still collecting a paycheck. People were being judged by how many little buttons they had that were sitting on their shirt. And it was like a real circus. And I remember the first time I saw that movie about 20 years ago, I was with my brother and my wife, and I said, oh my God, this is what it's like working in tech. You can't figure out what anybody's even doing. We had one tech company recently lose 80% of its employees, and it's still functioning completely perfectly, just as it did before. And that's the key. So no, this is not possible in cloud architecting. But the reality is in cloud architecting, you can earn 3 times more than a DevOps engineer would with a couple of years experience and being great at it anyway. So why would you want to? Why wouldn't you want to do your job, come home and spend time with your spouse, your children, your cat, or whatever else that you love? Go to the gym, be strong, be fit. So there's never a reason you're going to need to do that. But no, you can't work for more than one publicly traded company at the same time. I know people that have tried. I know people that have been fired. And I know people that have been sued as well. And believe me, being sued for millions of dollars for intellectual property loss is not something that anybody needs to have in their life.
And then there's 2 things, Young Fuego, is that they are, when you sign in, say, for instance, I won't name this specific management consulting firm, you go through an extensive understanding of what your financial resources are, because you're going to be using their phones, you're going to be using their laptops, you're going to be using their resources. And during work times, they always want you to funnel through any communications through their resources. So they know if you're working somewhere else because you're not supposed to. And that's going to be a part of your NDA, your disclosure agreements, your financial disclosure agreements. I mean, I've even seen people where their mortgages have been in different competitive arenas, and they've had to refinance their entire mortgage scenario, of which the company helped them to do that. But this is to the extent of how they know what you're doing and how you're getting it done. So, and then on top of that, you're going to be compensated tremendously for your efforts because you're going to be that person that they're going to be looking for, and they always reward their cloud architects handsomely. You're going to have tons of bonuses, commissions, even opportunities where you've done maybe a white paper or something similar to that, and you've implemented or uplifted their brand to prospective clients, and they'll give you a $500 gift certificate just because you did something nice like that. So don't assume that being a cloud architect is not a competitive and handsomely compensated role. You're going to get a tremendous amount of income for what you're doing, but also understand that trying to burn both sides of the candle, you're ultimately going to end up just like Mike said. You'll lose your job, you'll lose your reputation, you may have litigation against you, and then if you have these associated financial resources, they will be rescinded, putting you in a very, very bad situation. So focus on one thing. Focus on getting it done well, and you will be in a great position now and in the future. My job is going to pay for me to go to school alongside with your program. Would you suggest an MBA in IT management since it will be paid for? What about you, Mike?
Alan, right. Here's the thing. In addition to our program, I would love to see you get an MBA, but not in IT management. Here's the thing. Once they take an MBA and they tune it for healthcare management or IT management, they take most of the goodness out of it and they try and give it focus. I would love to see you get an MBA in management, or I would love to see you get an MBA in finance, but I would never get anything related to tech. Because what's going to happen is you're going to, instead of getting business executive and business people teach you, they're going to bring in the techies and they're going to be focused on the tech. And that will not be helpful to you at all. First, we don't manage any technology as architects. We design technology. And while you're at it, Alan, I want to give you some secrets about how to earn more in your tech career. Stay away from operations. Management of technology is operations. It pays a third or less. So, there's plenty of $800,000 chief architect jobs out there. There's plenty of $500,000 principal architect jobs out there. Do you know what a systems administrator or a management job or operations job pays? About $65,000 a year. So you can earn 10 times more as an architect. So don't pollute your resume with any technology management, any sysops, any DevOps, any of that stuff. Don't pollute your resume if you want to be an architect. Now, by comparison, if you got an MBA in management, now you're going to do something, because as cloud architects, we do a lot of stakeholder management. We manage the expectations of executives, for example. We have to build ROI, return on investment capital models with our customers to show them the business value. We've got to speak to the CEO about things, what they care about, and the CIO. Alan, an engineer can say no, but an engineer can't say yes. And here's what I mean. For a minute, let's pretend Alonzo was a cloud engineer. If he hated my solution, he might be able to tell his management not to buy it. They might still buy it anyway. But if Alonzo was the engineer and I brought him a good solution, he'd say, great, and I'll tell the management, because he couldn't buy it, because engineers don't hold the purse strings at these companies. The executive team does. And that's why when you're dealing with technology on the sales level, you're going to have an account executive and you're going to have a solution architect or cloud architect work with the executives. And you're going to have a sales engineer work with the techies, or a cloud engineer in a pre-sales environment work with the techies. So I love that you're motivated. I love that you want to get an MBA. Big win, but not in anything in technology. Learn the technology with us. And for the IT, or for the MBA, get it in management or finance. Something cool. Something that's going to make you better at your job. Because as I showed you some of those higher paying positions, it's all about business. The second you remove some of those business courses in favor of technology courses that are going to be taught by people that don't know anyway, it's just going to weaken it. So don't pollute your resume with more tech. Learn how to be an architect will make you a great architect. Get a great MBA in management. I have an MBA. Alonzo has an MBA. Chris from my team has an MBA. How about you, Alonzo? You want to add any flavor of that?
I couldn't agree more. It's like if you're going to be solidifying your technological prowess and your ability to do the job well, but being able to communicate that from a business perspective is going to really add a lot of shine to those facets of the diamond that you're putting together. So being able to understand that tech and being able to speak to it and communicate in a way that those in leadership are using it to transform the entire world and be able to speak on their terms and give them options to make them even more valuable for their stakeholders, that's going to be a very valuable skill set to have. This is from Jams, Mike. Would it be a good idea to become a network engineer before going for a cloud architect job?
Jams, let me give you some guidance. I'm going to ask you this question. Do you think if you wanted to be a doctor, you should go to school and learn how to be a nurse first? Do you think, for example, if you wanted to fly an airplane, that you should spend a stint learning how to be an auto mechanic for a car? If you learn how to become an engineer, like a network engineer, you'll learn how to become a network engineer and you'll know nothing of architecture. So Jams, I retrain people that are both cloud engineers and network engineers every day. And Jams, right now, I've got people with 20 years plus of network engineering and 10 years of cloud engineering, and I have to retrain them because engineering does not prepare you for an architect job. Mm-hmm. They're different. So let me explain the architect for you job, Jams, to so you understand why. And also, Jams, if you are an engineer, you need a complete and total rebrand to convince the hiring manager that you're an architect, not an engineer, because they don't want an engineer. So let's explain the architect's job. The architect goes to a business executive and asks them about their business pain points, their business challenges, and business goals. Architect job. The architect designs a solution by leading a team of other architects to design the solution together. The architect speaks at conferences. The architect is published constantly in magazines. You'll see that I'm published in a new magazine article 2-3 times a week. I was in about 110 magazine articles last year, like architects are, because architects are constantly shaping the industry. So they're an architect. As an architect, I'll work a conference booth. As an architect, I'm going to write a white paper. But as an architect, I'm not going to touch the technology. And Jams, in most companies, if you tried to touch your customer's technology, you'd be fired because it's not our job. We're not allowed to touch our customer's technology. We design, present, and sell. Jams, our focus as an architect is on the business. Now, if you became an engineer, your focus is going to be on the tech. And you'll learn how to configure the tech. Woohoo! You'll learn how to build it, which is great if you want to be an engineer. But for an architect, learning how to build is almost meaningless. I really want to say it's almost worthless, and here's why. A network engineer will go to a router in Japan and type router BGP 65312, neighbor 192.168, remote AS 65313, network 10.0.0, mask 255.255.0.0. Poof, they configured BGP on the router, and they're good at it. That network engineer knows how to configure it. Ding, 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 it's configured. Now, after that network engineer does that, Jams, here's what's going to happen. Let's say it's going to an external entity, and the company now takes on 800,000 new routes. The architect is not concerned with configuring that because it's meaningless for us. Somebody else does that. But as soon as that architect does that, does it affect the voice systems, which are sitting in Chicago, United States? Does it affect the supply chain that's over there in Hong Kong? Does it affect a sales rep in New York City? That's architect work. Has nothing to do with the engineering, none whatsoever. Mm. The engineer is focused on those commands and what's directly in front of them. And the architect is saying, somebody in Brazil turned on their PC, it had a worm, and that worm, when it started spewing off data at wire speed across this 10 gigabit Ethernet link, what did that do to the video conferencing systems or the unified communication systems? So Jams, if you learn engineering, You're going to need to be completely retrained to be an architect later. Learning how to be a nurse doesn't make going to medical school any easier, I promise you. I know both. I was a nurse, and I became a nurse practitioner, practiced medicine. I had to go to school completely all over again, because preparing for somebody else's job doesn't make you good at your job. It makes you worse at your job. Now, Jams, once you learn how to think like an engineer, guess what? You're going to be biased to think like an engineer, which is great if you want to be an engineer. But now you got to be an architect, and you try to do something engineering-wise, and you get fired from your job. I've seen engineers get fired. Architects get fired when they had too much engineering background because they try to do engineering when they were architects, and it's not what they're needed. So the point is, networking is great. Now, if you asked, hey, if I was a network architect, would that carry over? I'd say yes. If you said I was an enterprise architect and that would carry over, I'd say yes. But Jams, engineering does not teach you architecture. I'll take it outside of the tech world. Maybe it'll make more sense. So we have these people called building architects. They design hotels, they design shopping malls, they design it. And if I was a multi-billionaire and I wanted to produce a high-rise condo in Palm Beach and give each one of my friends a unit in there and give them like a monthly stipend that they could live on so I could play with my friends all the time, I would say that I want the thing to be 1,000 meters tall. I want a golf course on there. I want a yoga studio in there. I want a gym in there. I want 3 pools, a hot tub, a cold tub, and the architect would design it. Now, Jams, once the architect designed the blueprint and sold me the blueprint, I'm like, yeah, this is good. Ding, 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 I'm ready to buy it. Next thing that would happen is we'd hire a construction crew to go build it. And the construction crew would build it. The architect would be on his next client and designing, presenting, and selling a new blueprint to somebody else. Now, here's the thing, Jams. Do you think the people that build it, the construction workers, somebody's got to call them up and say, hey, would you design my hotel for me? No, of course not. The construction workers don't design the hotel. The architect that went to architect school designed it. So if you want to be good at your job, train for your job. Doctors don't learn how to be dog walkers and hope that it's going to make them good doctors. They train to be doctors. Engineering does not make you an architect. It's insanity. And I know where you're getting it from. It's because you see job descriptions that want tech. And the reality is, here's what happens. And I deal with this, and this is why we get people hired every day with 0 experience. The HR wants experience. HR gets somebody with tech, and here's what goes to the hiring manager. Hiring manager is looking for an architect. The person's an engineer. And it's kind of like if you wanted to adopt a cat and a dog showed up, you're not going to pick up the dog because you want a cat, or vice versa. So train for the career you want. Don't worry about a job description. What's in them is completely irrelevant. I've never had more than 10% of anything that's in a job description. I've never been on an interview that I didn't get hired from. I've seen thousands of people and helped thousands of people over the years, and don't worry about it in a job description. So become a great architect. Train to be a great architect, but do not learn somebody else's career. It serves an airplane pilot no benefit to go work as a waiter. It's not training, I promise you. It doesn't serve a doctor to be a physical therapist, and it doesn't serve an architect to have engineering experience. It's a different career.
You know what I find interesting, Mike, is a lot of what we see is a direct result of what a lot of cloud service providers say of what the overall career path is to becoming a cloud architect. You have to become a practitioner, then you got to go become a sysad, then a cloud engineer, then you got to get a pro cert here and do that, and then ultimately you'll get there. So you think about the time to money ratio to spend inaccurately to get to one point. We feel, like you said, it's inaccurate, especially with what they communicate out there that you need to become a cloud architect. So to Mike's point, I travel, Mike travels. I mean, we all do and get to where we need to go. However, we want to get there quickly. So we don't prefer a layover. So go to the direct flight. We are the direct flight, whereas everyone else, they have a layover here, layover there. As time moves on, everyone gets older. Things change, markets change, the demand change. However, they have you on this static trajectory that does not meet or speak to the needs of a fluctuating economy or everything else. Whereas we will get you to that point quicker, faster, with reduced resources that you have, and be able to provide and be able to underscore your competency to get you those salaries that you're looking for. So we want to make sure we dispel a lot of what we see in the industry and how you can realistically and get to where you need to go as becoming a cloud architect. From Rajan, what is the future scope of cloud and DevOps in terms of job market in India?
Rajan, I need you to be a little more clear. What do you mean cloud? Do you mean cloud engineer? Do you mean cloud architect? Do you mean cloud developer? Do you mean people that are cloud big data people? Do you mean cloud DevOps engineers?
Yes.
Do you mean cloud network engineers? Do you mean cloud security engineers? Do you mean cloud security architects? Do you mean defensive cloud people or offensive cloud people? And so Rajan, you got to tell me, give me a little more guidance, because some of these careers are really great. And some of these careers may not be, but cloud is just a virtual network and data center. And all the jobs that existed before the cloud still exist. So let me know what you want and what kind of things, because each one of these jobs is going to be better. If your goal is software engineering, I'd say find a new career, because with low code solutions, for example, and generative AI, we're going to need about 10% of the actual programmers, and 90% are going to be on the sidelines or laid off or made redundant. But at the same time, the architect world, we're going to need a lot more of them. So all this stuff is career dependent. It's not just, hey, Mike, what's the future of tech? I mean, networking tech, AI tech, security tech. So give us a little more of a guidance of what you're looking for. Because I want you to, so you're a second-year business tech student, you're still exploring. So let me give you some guidance then, if you're not really used to the technologies, because I want to guide you. I would tell you that cloud architecture is obviously the best. It has the most future potential. And as the technology gets more and more complicated, we need the architects to tie the technology together to promote a business solution. I would also tell you that in India, cloud engineering is quite good. And the reason it's quite good is most of what the companies do at this point is they have an architect like me that's local. The cloud architect in England, for example, designs it for the people in England or continental Europe. And when it comes time to building it, most of these tech companies have their build team sitting in India, Pakistan, Africa, or some other part of the world where there's a lot of really good technology professionals, but there's a lower cost of living, so they can pay less and still get top talent. If you told me software development, I'd say get out of software development as fast as possible. I've never recommended studying programming. I don't recommend studying programming for the following reasons. I'm an economist, and I look at supply and demand curves. Everybody gets taught programming in college. And in every silly boot camp where we have to retrain the people to get hired, guess what? They're all taught coding too. So you got a commodity of people that can code in every part of the world. And guess what? The higher the supply, the lower the value. So programming, I would view it as a very low paid future if there's any jobs in there. And if that wasn't enough to make it worse, the cloud providers are offering low code solutions. So you basically 80% of the coding is not there. And now we've got generative AI that can effectively write all the code. So that's really the key. I would say stay away from anything code related. Now, DevOps is kind of interesting because DevOps is actually merging coding with operations. And I really hate software careers because of the pesky supply and demand curves from macroeconomics. So I would say there are, but at the same time, DevOps does a lot of automation. But a lot of the DevOps scripts, again, can be done via ChatGPT and other generative things like Google Bard. I'd say it's not terrible. DevOps might be okay. Now, cloud security, there you've got something. From the cloud architects and the cloud engineers, there's cloud security engineers, there's cloud security architects, there's defensive security engineers that do protection, there's offensive security engineers that do penetration testing. I think you're good with either one of those two. And then there's the artificial intelligence side of the world. We've got the architects like me that work with the business to figure out what technologies would be great for them to use to improve their business performance. And then we're going to have the AI engineers. I think there's going to be some work that's good there for those two people. And a lot of that work would be done on cloud. And of course, there's blockchain work too, which could be done on or off of cloud. I've never been big on blockchain careers, so to speak. But I think there's still potential in blockchain if anybody figures out how they're going to actually use it. I mean, there's lots of great opportunities to prevent things like drug diversion, to make sure supplies get to places on time, to facilitate currency transfers and many other things. But blockchain's kind of like the wild, wild west out there for the most part. So those would be, and then cloud networking. Now, when it comes to networking, there's always going to be opportunities for careers, because if the network doesn't work, nothing works. And very few people actually understand networking. So there's always opportunity in networking careers.
From Ashin, is information technology a good major in college if I want to become a cloud architect?
So no. Ashan, if you want to become a cloud architect, I'd recommend a business degree. What are you going to learn in an IT course? You're going to learn coding and Linux and all those things that we don't touch. You're not going to learn how systems are designed and how systems work. And that's the key for the architect, is how do they work and how do you design them and how do you leverage them to maximize business performance? So I generally don't like degrees in technology, because with few exceptions, other than maybe IIT in India, to some degree, but nowhere near as close, MIT in Massachusetts does somewhat of a good job. Not as good as IIT in India, where they really teach hardcore tech. Georgia Tech does to some degree. But the professors in these schools generally aren't people that had big tech careers. They're people that read a bunch of books, got a PhD in something, got a lot of depth in a very small area, and mostly do research. And because they're not actually working in the tech, they're not in a position to really know what's going on. They're not speaking to the C-suite, at the customers, hearing their business problems. So I'd recommend a business degree. I can tell you, Ashan, my degrees really helped me. They were in healthcare, and my healthcare degrees really taught me how to be an architect, because I learned how to practice internal medicine. And in internal medicine, a patient comes in and they tell you about their problem. My throat hurts. I ask them some questions about their throat. I look at their throat, look in their ears, listen to their nose, listen to their heart, lungs. I make a diagnosis and a treatment plan. Now, as an architect, I ask my clients, some customers. A client comes to me, they've got a problem. I ask them about their problem. I bring in some engineers to baseline their systems. That's the equivalent of the exam that the doctor would do. I make a diagnosis and I build a treatment plan called an architecture. So healthcare translates well. My degrees are all in business or healthcare. I've got multiple master's degrees, and one's an MBA and one's a master's in nursing, of all things, actually as a nurse practitioner. And I will tell you, those things translated. But I wouldn't get a degree in tech if I wanted to be an architect.
From Claudio, okay. Mike, once hired as a cloud architect, can I create non-work related content on social media? Is that generally forbidden because I am employed? I have seen other known creators do it.
Well, Claudio, you got to think about what your real goal is and who you want to be perceived as. So personally, I use social media for business and professional purposes only and nothing else, because I want my professional brand to be strong and pure and intact. Now, I don't practice anymore, but if I was out there doing karate or Krav Maga and posting that on social media, does that really build the brand of the executive architect? Me breaking boards with my feet? Probably not. And if I was going to the beach and practicing yoga on the beach with my abs, or flexing my abs, for example, so you could see them, does that really make me look like a leader? It really doesn't. Or now, what if I was out there with my wife and I decided we just saw a James Bond movie, and every time I see a James Bond movie, I have to get a vodka martini shaken but not stirred so I can feel like James Bond for the day. And I started posting pictures of me looking like James Bond. Now, that really doesn't make me look good either. So the key is social media can't really help you unless you're posting things that are related to your field or building your career, but it can hurt you. So is it forbidden? Nothing's forbidden. I mean, there's nothing you can do out there, but what do you want to be known for? If you need heart surgery and there's a cardiothoracic surgeon that's known to be the best in the world, and he's out there showing pictures of him eating pizza, are you going to take him as seriously as if you're going to see something of him doing an open heart surgery that's changing a life or being on the news? It's not going to feel the same. So it's up to you. But personally, I don't want anybody to know anything about me because it can be used against you. You post on social media, now hackers have information to hack you with. And it's out there. So could you do it? Yeah, you could, but I wouldn't. I'd focus on being a professional and focus every time that I had in my spare time. Now, Claude, there's also the opportunity cost of what you could do on social media. You could spend an hour on social media looking at cat photos, and I love cat photos, but you could look at cat photos or cat videos. You can spend 3 hours creating content on social media that won't help you, or you can spend 3 hours and boost the skills for your career. You only have so much amount of time. And if you're not boosting the skills for your career, what else could you do? You could spend time with your family. You could volunteer and help others. You know, most of my life, I coached those that were less fortunate than me. And I taught them how to build great careers. And it's really exciting to see someone that was, you know, almost homeless get a $250,000 job. And I did that for fun and I enjoyed it. So there's that. So I spend time with my wife, for example. And yes, I like to play with my cat. I like to throw the ball and she catches it. And my cat runs at like 30 miles an hour. I call it speed training. I throw a ball and she catches it and brings it back to me. I think it's cool. She thinks she's a golden retriever, but she's really a cat. But whatever the case is I wouldn't do it. I'd focus on building my career.
From Shunak, how is the reemergence of monolith architecture affecting cloud ecosystems?
So Sharnak, there's never been a diversion from monolithic architectures. Here's what's gone on. The cloud providers have tried to convince everybody the cloud's cheaper. It isn't. The cloud's still worth it because it's agile, but it's not cheaper. And then what happened is when they knew people were going to find out that the cloud was more expensive. So then when people started complaining about their cloud bills, the cloud provider said, hey, everybody, use these serverless architectures. It's going to be cheaper. Now, most businesses knew better and didn't go. So the reality is 90% of businesses didn't go microservices anyway. They stayed with their monoliths. And nearly every cloud architecture that you'll see out there was actually a lift and shift. Take their virtual machine and move it directly to the cloud. So they were still monoliths. So what you're going to see is most businesses were smart. They weren't doing or following any of the silly nonsense that was taught in certifications. And that's why we had to train people, because certifications are kind of like vendor brainwashing. Here's what we want you to sell. Now, the other reason, Sharnak, the reason people didn't go to microservices is once you went with these ridiculous services. If you've ever seen the song Hotel California by the Eagles, you can check in anytime you want, but you can never leave. And when companies would use these proprietary things like AWS's ECS, Elastic Compute Service, then they'd put their stuff on their Fargate, which is another serverless thing. And every time Fargate would run, they'd get another bill, another bill, another bill, another bill. And, you know, it got pretty expensive really fast to go on these ridiculous serverless things. And when you go to serverless, you lose control and you lose performance. So most businesses didn't go microservices, they knew. Now, sometimes microservices make sense, but the point is all that proprietary stuff that certain cloud providers tried to say was really so they could handcuff you together and make it always hard to leave, like the Hotel California. You can check in anytime you like, but you can never leave. So most businesses didn't use any of that nonsense in the first place. They stuck with their virtual machine-based architecture. Are monoliths dead? No. Is serverless dead? No. It's always been about what's in the best interest of the company. What's in the financial interest in the company. Now, you're seeing these new careers like FinOps pop up. They're not necessary careers. Here's what's going on. The early architects didn't have the business acumen to be able to build a business case and show organizations what's going to work. So there were a lot of bad architectures. And these bad architectures cost too much money. So now companies are inventing a new career, FinOps, to try and control their cloud costs. They needed the right architectures. So Shinak, 2.5 years ago, we told everybody, hybrid multi-cloud is the future. So how are cloud systems now? They're all multi-cloud or they're all hybrid multi-cloud. Why? You can't put all your stuff in a single cloud provider. It's a single point of failure. AWS has an outage, Azure has an outage, Google has an outage. If you put all your eggs in that basket, you are done. People don't buy a single stock. Businesses don't use a single cloud. If you don't believe me, 98% of businesses use multiple clouds. Now, here's the other thing that happened. You can't get the same level of performance in the cloud or security as you could in a properly built data center. So for example, I can go to Dell today, right now, and buy a server for $150,000. I could rent that server from AWS for $16,000 a month for 4 years straight. And I could buy it for $150,000, or I could rent it from AWS for about $700,000. Now imagine a business that needs 1,000 servers. Okay, 700,000 versus 150,000 times 1,000. You do the math on that. So what businesses are doing is they're going back to hybrid clouds. They're building a Nutanix cloud or an OpenStack cloud, and they're getting all that great cloud agility, auto scaling, virtual load balancing. It's just beautiful. And then they burst out to the cloud, and then they're using multiple clouds. So the monolith architecture really never changed. Most of it was still monolith. The early architectures in the cloud went single cloud or hybrid cloud. And you've got companies like JP Morgan Chase building their own private cloud, saving $2 billion per year by not using a public cloud because they're building a private cloud themselves. So that's really what happened. There's no resurgence of monolith architectures. Monolith architectures always stayed here. It's just that businesses went, uh-oh, the thing that we knew wasn't going to work, these microservices architecture, we knew it was going to get more expensive under certain cases. You know, when Amazon released that they left their microservices serverless-based environment to go back to virtual machines, and it's going to save them 90%. That's what we were teaching our architect students 2.5 years ago. We knew it. We were saying, you know, here's when it makes sense to re-architect. Here's when it makes sense to stay straight. So the reality is, for the people that are actually working in the field, it doesn't affect anything. We were already monoliths anyway. It's only for the people that were learning. And that's why, Shinak, I always have this thing that I say, don't become an evangelist. And what I mean by that is you can't afford to fall in love with any technology. You have to fall in love with making your customer successful. When you fall in love with a technology like serverless, you become like a hammer where you're looking for a nail. You want to be great. And what is the best technology for your customer? The answer is, it depends. There is no best technology. I'm going to tell you right now, what's best for your business would be different than Alonzo's business, which would be different than my business. And that's why you do it. We run on an OpenStack cloud. Why? Because it cost me 10 grand to build an OpenStack cloud, and AWS wanted $11,000 per month. So I could have paid AWS $4,000 or spent $400,000 or spent $10,000 to build my own OpenStack cloud. Now, to be fair, I had some firewalls from Cisco sitting here, and I had some Cisco switches sitting here because I worked for them for a long period of time. And one of their employees used to send me gear to test it and give them feedback, and they'd let me keep it to give feedback to them. So the point is for me, I didn't need as much networking gear, but nothing's changed. Good question, though.
From AQC, there are lots of texts that Cloud Architect can talk about, such as object storage, data centers, but how to passionately demonstrate not only focus on tech, but also business acumen or finance.
Well, it's pretty easy. Here, I'll show you AQC. Here's the difference between a real architect and someone that's certified that'll never be hired. You know, I'm gonna be a techie. Alonzo, let me tell you about what I can do to actually help you. I can talk to you about AWS S3. It's their form of object storage, and boy, it works is as follows. You create a bucket, you upload your files, and you set permissions. Now I'm a techie, and nobody's going to listen to me whatsoever, AQC. Oh, look at Alonzo's expression. It was like this. When is this guy going to shut up and leave my office? That's what he was thinking, I can tell you right now. By comparison, Alonzo, let's talk about cloud. You know, when we spoke, you told me that you had 1,000 virtual machines that were end of life. And you told me that you were looking at going to Dell to finance it. Now, when you told me your weighted average cost of capital was 6%, and when we looked up the finance charges to actually finance these systems from Dell, you were realistically dealing with $3.6 million per month. When we evaluated your system by using virtual machines in the cloud, we looked at a few things. We looked at the auto-scaling capabilities of the cloud. By looking at this, we found that it was cheaper to run your systems on the cloud by 22% because here's the reason. We can run your systems at average capacity 90% of the time, and we can scale out capacity as needed for your web applications. Now, by comparison, so moving your web applications to the cloud makes a lot of sense. Now, you also told me, Alonso, that you've got this algorithmic trading system. And you told me that a nanosecond of performance can equal $3.2 million per each nanosecond gain to your actual overall revenue. What we did is we evaluated the types of performance you can get on the cloud as well as your WAN bandwidth to the cloud. We can get you almost 500 nanoseconds faster by putting you inside of your data center, which will negate to $150 million by placing just those systems on the data center. The way we can do this is as follows. Dell has these servers with 2 AMD EPYC CPUs. We can max out the RAM with 4 gigabytes of RAM, and we can actually use an NVMe RAID array that'll give you 19 million IOPS. I know you don't care about that, you're an executive. What I can tell you is you can process your trades 500 milliseconds faster, and it's 500 milliseconds times 500 times 3.2 million. That's what we can do this. And realistically speaking, it's only going to cost you $3 million to do this, and we're going to generate 3 times $500 million in business revenue for you. Are you interested?
Definitely. Big difference.
So AQC, if you don't have business acumen, you can't do that. If you don't understand what weighted average cost of capital is, or an organization's capital structure, you don't know if CapEx or OpEx is a good thing or a bad thing. If you don't know their business inputs, you don't know their business outputs. So it's about things like that, for example. And we didn't have a chance to think this through AQC, but that's why you need so much business.
From David, what are some examples of industry/production cloud projects that would look good to a hiring manager and or team?
David, when I see a resume and somebody lists cloud projects, I toss it in the trash because hiring managers aren't impressed by cloud projects. Now, there are certain things that you could do which would be impressive to the hiring manager, but you got to tell me what career you want, because something that an architect might do as part of a training program would be very good versus something that an engineer would do. Like, for example, if I have a cloud architect that's configuring a Linux thing or one of those ridiculous things that the certification providers are doing, they just convince me not to hire them. First, with the crazy project section on the resume, which looks terrible. And secondly, with projects for somebody else's career. But there are projects that you can do that will really build your brand, David. So the key is, what job are you talking about? Because they're all different. Engineering projects look terrible for architects. Architect things don't look good for engineers. Security things look good for security people. Could you tell me what career you're interested in? And I'd love to answer your question.
From Ashan again, what steps do I take after getting a bachelor's in business to become a cloud architect? And I am a sophomore in college and I want to become a cloud architect. Does it have anything to do with cloud computing?
Well, Ashan, cloud architecture does have something to do with cloud computing. We're designing the systems that will run on the cloud, the hybrid clouds, the public clouds, the private clouds. So keep that in the back of your mind. So yes, it does have a lot to do with it. You're going to need to go to a good training program. I'll tell you what I did, and I'll tell you why we have our program. We have a cloud architect career development program. And actually, to learn a lot more about how to become a cloud architect, please come to the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar on Thursday. And also, please download the How to Become a Cloud Architect document that's in the description of this video. So what I did was as follows, and I made a mistake. I worked as an engineer for about a year. And then after I worked as an engineer, what I did is I took an MBA to learn the business acumen and got $100,000 of training in CXO relevancy, sales skills, executive presence, communication skills, leadership skills, emotional intelligence, to be an architect. That's what I did. I don't want you to have to do that. We have a cloud architect career development program, and we get people cloud architect jobs almost every single day out of this program with zero experience. because we train them exactly for the job. The things that you're going to have to learn are every part of the network, the data center, and the cloud. Most people fail because they learn the cloud. Now, here's what an architect's going to do. I'm going to meet with the business who most likely has technology. I'm going to ask them about their business goals, and I'm going to architect a solution. And let's say it was going to go all to the cloud, Ashan, and it's not. But let's pretend it was for a second. In order to move those systems that are sitting in their data center to the cloud, I have to understand what those systems are. So if you don't understand networking in data centers, not only will you not know the cloud, because all the cloud is renting space in somebody else's network and data center. It's a hotel business. When you go to a hotel, you go on vacation somewhere with warm weather and palm trees, you check into a room and it's there, but somebody else owns the building. That's the cloud. The cloud provider owns the space and you rent space in it. It's your virtual data center. They really should call it data center as a service. But they don't. They call it cloud. What cloud really means officially is you don't know what's going on under the hood. And I've been working with the cloud since 1996. The first cloud was Frame Relay. The next one was ATM. The one after that was RFC 2547, the BGP cloud. The one after that was VPLS. So there's what you're doing. So next on that list, what you're actually dealing with is you need to learn the networking things. So what are these networking things? They're BGP, they're OSPF to a certain degree, they're IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route summarization, route aggregation. Their selection of the right WAN technologies, such as IPsec tunnels, private lines, software-defined networking, SD-WAN, SASE. It's ARP, it's proxy ARP, it's DNS, it's DHCP, it's switching technology such as VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, port channel, ether channel, it's spanning tree protocol, rapid spanning tree protocol on the networking side. It's NAT, and it's not like the silly nonsense in the AWS Advanced Networking. There's a lot to NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, and PAT. And then it's also the servers and server virtualization and the containers and container orchestration and the storage area networks, block storage, object storage, file storage, for example. It's the business applications that are necessary to run these systems. It's dealing with load balancers and reverse proxies. It's dealing with next generation firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators, and the equivalent ways that you would deploy these things in the cloud to go work around the weaknesses in the cloud provider systems. And then after that, you'd have to learn how to design the systems, which is putting the pieces and parts together. You'd have to learn the business cases to build ROI models. You'd have to learn CXO relevancy. You'd have to train your presentation skills and your sales skills. Now, that's a lot. And that's why we have the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. But that's how you would do it. You would learn those things. Now, we're experts at training these things. And I don't want you to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars like I did to become an elite architect. And that's why we have our program, which is 3 days pay for the average graduate. And our students get hired constantly anywhere in the world. That's really what it takes.
From David, what are some examples of industry production cloud projects that would look good to a hiring manager and or team?
Okay, David, you mentioned cloud engineering. Excellent. And the reason I asked this is if you did cloud engineering projects and you wanted to be a cloud architect, it would look terrible. But for cloud engineering, here are certain things you could do. You might build a website, like a 3-tier website, meaning application tier, the user presentation tier, the web tier, the application tier, the database tier, and design it across 2 or more clouds. You might set up some VMware environments to show that you actually understand what's going on. You might create VPNs between your organization and a cloud. You might set up a lot of VPC peering. I would be building systems, web systems with, say, a LAMP stack. I'd be setting up databases and integrating databases into web systems. I'd be designing and building my own cloud. I'd be designing and building my own cloud and connecting the cloud that you built yourself to 2 or 3 public clouds. I'd be setting up Active Directory systems and federating it with your own cloud that you built, as well as other public clouds' identity and access management system. I would be setting up a lot of cloud networking. I'd be setting cloud transit solutions across the cloud, like pushing multicast across GRE tunnels across the cloud, for example, like that. I'd be building Kubernetes clusters the hard way, not by using anything that's done. I would build it the hard way on virtual machines to show that you truly understand these systems. And I would get hands-on for engineers. I would learn how to automate, patching and things. If I was a cloud engineer, I'd be writing Python scripts and solve certain problems if I was a cloud engineer. If I was a cloud engineer, I'd be doing Terraform projects across multiple clouds because, again, you can't just know one cloud. And in today's world, you need to know the cloud, not multiple clouds, so I would do that. But David and everybody else that's listening, these projects will not work for a cloud architect. These are good projects for a cloud engineer. But you're going to have to find some way to intelligently put it. I've been noticing it's almost as if there's certification people are doing this. Years ago, I told everybody you will not get hired with certifications. And then after the certification providers kept telling people, when you can't get hired, get this certification, this certification, this certification, this certification, and this certification. Now they started with cloud projects. Cloud projects will not get you hired. Actual knowledge will get you hired. The right brand will get you hired. The right interview skills will get you hired. The right articles and things that you write on LinkedIn that are going to show people you're knowledgeable and a solution provider will get you hired. Projects will give you a little hands-on experience, which will reinforce your knowledge. But in the end, nobody's going to look at your projects. Nobody cares what you put in Git. They care what you know and the job that you can do. So the projects are secondary only to reinforce your actual learning knowledge. So how would you design the IP addressing, for example? That's a real thing to think about. So start thinking about things that are going to make you more knowledgeable. But I generally throw resumes away that have projects on it. I've spoken to 40 or 50 hiring managers and they're like, I'm seeing this resurgence. It's like somebody told people to put projects on. I'm not an artist looking at people's portfolio. I'm going to give someone a deep technical interview and I want to know if they can do the job. And they're showing me projects and I ask them a question and they can't answer it. So I would tell you, sure, do some as a cloud engineer to reinforce your knowledge, but I'd rather you spend more time truly understanding how the stuff actually works. Because if you don't understand how it works, you can't performance tune it. Nobody's going to look at your projects, but you better know what's on your resume. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Projects are a good thing to reinforce your knowledge, but what really, really, really not matters is being able to show people.
From Joseph, can someone just starting in the cloud go straight to learning cloud architecture?
Of course, Joseph.
Yeah, definitely.
So Joseph, I mean, I'll just give you a couple examples. So we had a Vladimir who was a 24-year-old. We got him his first cloud architect job. It was his first tech job. We had Jeffrey West, who we got his first tech job, which happened to be a cloud architect job for Callian. We had Ivan Tamba, for example, who was a waiter who we got hired as a cloud architect for AWS. We also did that with Coyote, a college student. We just got hired his first job as an AWS. We had Delroy Bad, who I spoke to today, got his first cloud security architect job. His last job was working as an ambulance as an emergency medical technician prior to our training. We had Jennifer Emu, who was a mental health tech, now working at JPMorgan Chase as a cloud architect. We had Wallace Agana. You can see him on our YouTube channel. First job as an enterprise architect. He bypassed it. We had Al a few weeks ago, got hired by Deloitte as a senior solution architect. It's his first tech job ever. We had my personal favorite to talk about is Daniel Bosu, because not only do I wish he was my own son, I like this kid so much, but he didn't even graduate high school. And he got hired by the world's largest bank, JPMorgan Chase, as a cloud architect. We had Noah a few weeks ago, who was a social worker who got hired as a cloud architect. I can give you example after example after example. With the right preparation, of course you can. And here's the thing, if you learn somebody else's job, you would still need to be completely retrained because it's a different job. So no, start with the job you want. And if you want to be a cloud architect, study cloud architecture.
From Purnell, what are some use cases for Kubernetes? Is it primarily for smaller applications? We just want to ask Purnell, is this in regarding to cloud architecture or cloud engineering?
And Purnell, you just signed up to be our student. Please do the work in the course and you will know the answer to this. On today's discussion, we're discussing how to build your career, not tech questions, and how to use microservices and how to use Kubernetes versus virtual machines. You've got 700 hours plus training in that program, 1,000 if you're really motivated and do it. So go back and watch all the old classes. do the program, and you will know how to architect Kubernetes, when it's appropriate for Kubernetes, when to use virtual machines, and when to use everything necessary to truly help your customer. It's not a just simple answer. It's a very complicated answer based upon the business needs. It's never about the tech, Purnell. It's always about the business.
From Gerald, what is the difference between a sales engineer and a cloud solutions architect?
I don't know what CSA means, Gerald. I don't know if you mean consulting systems architect, certified solution. I don't know what CSA means. And I'll tell you, if you were an architect, that's one thing you would know is never to use acronyms because they cause confusion. I just gave you 3 of them. The difference between a sales engineer and a solution architect or a cloud architect is as follows. The sales engineer is a techie that's tied to sales. And they speak, look, and walk and talk like a techie. And the sales engineer focuses on dealing with the customer's engineer. The sales engineer often is an engineer first, and then they move to the sales side. They got a little bit of business knowledge, a little bit of sales capabilities, but generally speaking, Gerald, you hide those people from the executives because they can't communicate like an executive. The architect, by comparison, is an executive that's a peer and consulting to the executives who communicates to the executive. So I'll be a sales engineer, and then I'll be an architect. Alonzo is going to be my client. Hi, Alonzo. I'm Mike, the sales engineer today, and today we're going to talk about your demilitarized zone. You know, you told me security was really important to me, so what we've done is I've got you the baddest network load balancer from AWS, and then we're going to get some virtual machines, and on these virtual machines, we're going to put the Palo Alto firewall. These Palo Alto firewalls are super powerful. They're next generation. They can adapt to a security threat. You know, behind that set of next generation firewalls, we're going to use another network load balancer. We're going to get some Fortinet firewalls because they use a different algorithm than the Palo Alto firewalls. And if anything, we're able to breach this firewall. Now we got a new set of firewalls. Behind that, we're going to come up with another network load balancer. And you know what we're going to do with that? We're going to put 2 IDS, IPS systems. And you know why? These things generate logs, and more logs. And we're going to look at these logs, and we're going to mine the logs, and we're going to figure out what's going on in our system. Behind that, we're going to use this thing called a network access list. We're going to talk about a security group. We're going to harden your systems. It's really exciting stuff. We'll make you secure. Gerald, that's a sales engineer. Now, I'll be a cloud architect. Hi, Alonzo. So nice to see you again. Thank you for the opportunity to consult on your business. Alonzo, when we spoke, you told me that you had, literally speaking, 10 million customers in your database. You also told me that you were concerned of a security event. And we discussed that on average, in the event of a security event, it cost you $162 per person to notify them of what occurred and sign them up for credit monitoring, which means your exposure, should anything happen to your database, is $162 times 10 million people. As you can see, it's pretty serious. What we'd like to do is design a solution for you that leverages the strengths and weaknesses of several different security providers. And by doing so, we can create a defense in depth. So if something bypasses one of your systems, it'll bypass another system. We found a good financing solution to you. And with your low weighted average cost of capital, it'll be cheaper for you to buy the systems and store these systems in your data center in your Nutanix cloud than it would actually be to use the AWS cloud. Now, what are we doing? We're going to reach out to the best security providers in the world. We reached out to Palo Alto, and we recommend some of their firewalls for the following reasons. They can adapt to security threats, and they are the market leader. Now, everybody has problems, so the next thing we want to use is Checkpoint. Checkpoint is an Israeli organization that's got 25 years experience in security. We'd like to integrate them. Those 2 things will keep outside intruders out, and they can also adapt to threats. My team would also like to use devices that can find out if you've been hacked and can actually stop it in its tracks to make your system more resilient and protect your shareholders and protect your business from exposure. There's some other things which we can do which come free, things like access lists. I'll have my engineers talk about it with your engineers about how to set them up. There's nothing for you to purchase. Just know that they're there, which are going to improve the performance of your system. But the cost of this system is about $11 million. by comparison to the $600 million exposure that would cost you for security. We feel this would be in your best interest. Additionally, did you know the average company is hacked every 6 years? And which means that the expected value of a security hack each year for you at $500 million of exposure divided by 1/6 is this. We compare that to your $11 million security thing, and honestly, it looks like peanuts to offer you the protection so you can sleep at night, know your customers' data is protected, your customers won't get access to information. How does that sound to you?
Perfect, Mike. Let's learn more.
So that's the difference, Gerald. The architect is a business executive who knows technology. The sales engineer is a techie. I was both. I had fun as a sales engineer and I got really techie, and I much preferred being an architect, but that's the major difference.
From Desislava, what percentage of your students finish the courses, and those that do, what percentage get jobs in the field and within the time frame average time frame, and how do you collect this data? Thanks.
Well, pretty simply, all the students that finish our course for the most part are hired. Why? Because the students stay in our program until they're hired. So anybody that doesn't quit gets hired. Now, what percentage of students don't finish the class? I'm not anybody's parent. And by that, I've got a business to run. I've got students to get hired. I've got companies and CEOs to talk to every day about why they want to hire GoCloud students. I don't track which people don't do their homework. If I did, we wouldn't charge $2,500, which is 3 days pay for the average graduate. We'd charge $25,000 so we could have little mini police officers knocking on people's door and checking to see if they're actually doing the work. It's not anybody on our team's job to make sure students do the work. Anybody that does our program and goes through the program will be hired because we stay in the program. How long does it take the average student? About 8 to 12 months. And we know this because we know when people signed up from the time they actually tell us they're cloud hired. But we actually have people that take our course that don't even tell us when they're hired, that we find out the next day. And then 3 months later, they're like, Mike, I forgot to thank you. You got me this great job. It was the greatest thing ever. But we don't chase people down. We keep our costs low. We accept everyone, just like Temple University, where I went to school. See, when I went to school, I went to Temple University, and it was the best university ever. And here's the reason why. Tuition was low. I worked and paid for it myself. They accepted 100% of the people. Everybody was welcome. They didn't say you couldn't do it, your grades weren't good enough, you didn't do well enough in high school, you were busy partying, who cares? I was busy driving to Miami to go visit a friend constantly in high school because I hated being in the Philadelphia metro and I liked the warm weather and palm trees in Miami. And when I went to Temple, it was very clear. Look to the left, look to the right. At least one of them will fail out by the end of the semester. Those people that stayed, you'll find Temple people in leadership at every major organization in the world because they made it hard. They made it real. And those people that survived did great. But pretty much everybody that I know of that continues the program gets hired. How about you, Alonzo? You speak to as many people as I do.
Well, I'll tell you this. Every time, I've seen this so many times when I have my initial consultations with our clients, and then they pipeline themselves successfully right through to the other side. When I notice that they've been cloud hired, it's all the time. It's very often. It's consistent. We're always reaching out to each other constantly. Like, I just found out such and such got hired. This one just got a new cloud architect position or a new solutions architect position. And it's a constant influx because they've done the work. They understand that the program works if you do. If they put in the work, then their realizations and their efforts will be brought to fruition through these job offers. So we see it all the time. And oftentimes, even our what we call our cloud architect, cloud hired graduates, they even come in and they speak on our Hitting the Cloud podcast. They sometimes come in during our live classes when we're teaching class to showcase how synonymous what we teach is in the real world. So it's often, and it's inundated often, and we even have our students, if they're even here, to even substantiate that. So we always have those quality students or those diligent students who apply the work. They're not looking for some sort of immediate turnaround out of nowhere to get these $100,000 positions. They understand what it takes, and they're making it happen. And they're working in our awesome Go Cloud Careers community, where they go above and beyond. They meet in groups. They implement study sessions. They hold each other accountable. Did you do this today? If you did, great. On to the next. If not, then why not? What is your contingency plan? Because they know what's at stake. They know what they can do if they get to this point, and they realize the return on investment what they've applied pales in comparison to what they're going to get with this new architectural cloud job, with their career, with their trajectory, the resources that they're going to have at their disposal, the new training. I mean, it just goes on, and the network opportunities. Wow. So we have lots of substantiated data to be able to showcase that we are successful, and our students are even more successful with this program. From Gerald, how do you showcase cloud architect experience on your resume without sounding like an engineer?
Well, Gerald, for people in our organization, it's quite easy because everybody gets an internship and they list these things that they do under their internship. Without that, it's going to be really, really challenging. I mean, you could put a research and development section or a career transition section on your resume and give it dates, but it's going to look fishy. Whereas with us, we give everybody an internship and they've got a place to put it. But you know, here's the difference. An engineer might put on their resume, configured in S3 bucket, set up a bucket policy. An architect might say, designed a solution for a bank, designed an algorithmic trading system for a bank, presented the solution to the CXO leaders, designed a solution which could improve business, designed a solution which is projected to save the business 26% on their technology careers. That's architect stuff. It doesn't touch the tech. It talks about what the tech does for the business. An engineer career is I coded a website using Java. And a software architect says, design Java-based website which increased sales conversions by 23%. So there's a difference between the architect, which is design, present, and sell, and engineer, which is code, build, and configure. So you have to have things that are related to design, as opposed to things that are related to building. Do you put things that explain business? So, you know, I've done some management consulting. The management consulting on my resume looks identical to the architect. You know why? An architect is a consultant. Worked with client XYZ. Helped client XYZ with this. That's an architect. Engineer. Built the LAMP stack. That's an engineer. Architect. Designed LAMP stack based website which improved business performance by XYZ%. So the key is to keep it focused on architecture versus engineering. You sound like an engineer, they're going to view you as an engineer. You sound like an architect, they're going to see you as an architect. So describe the things that are relevant for the career.
From AQC, how much should a cloud architect know about FinOps besides the need to understand the cost of services like CloudWatch or different storage systems?
AQC, I think you're still missing architecture. So how much do you need to know about cardiothoracic surgery? How much do you need to know about how to make an NFL running back faster? How much do you need to know about how to fly an airplane? They're all different people's careers. How much do you need to know about somebody else's career? About as much as you need to know about cardiothoracic surgery. It's somebody else's job. Here's the thing. It's not a competitive advantage for you to understand somebody else's job. It's also not a competitive advantage for you to focus on the cost of any of these things. It's a competitive advantage for you to design the right architecture and then have someone from your team help you actually calculate the cost. Typically somebody from the inside sales department. And then you can work with them to go do these things. As an architect, you're going to be too busy to be thinking about CloudWatch costs or other things like this. You're going to be thinking about how do you transform their business, and there's always going to be somebody that's going to help you with the bill of materials and costing, and it won't be you. So how do you improve a customer's business performance? How do you design systems across multiple clouds that don't fail? How do you design systems that don't get hacked? How do you make the technology improve the business performance? What business problems are you trying to solve? How do you calculate an ROI model to sell it? If it's not related to designing, presenting, and selling, it's not your job. It is of no benefit for you to know other people's careers. Now, if you are going to learn somebody else's career, instead of learning FinOps, I recommend learning cardiothoracic surgery. It pays a lot more. Because once you put the word ops in anything, it drops the salary by 80% because the people that sell it earn a lot more than the people that maintain it. So the reality is we don't need FinOps at all. FinOps is a made-up career to try and deal with bad architecture in the first place. If you design something right, you don't need a cleanup crew to go fix it. This is all coming from architects that did not have the business acumen to understand what they were designing and understanding the business's need. That's the need for FinOps. So I strongly encourage you to learn the architect career, not worry about anybody else's career. And if you're going to learn anybody else's career, maybe become a cardiothoracic surgeon. It pays very well. Maybe become an orthopedic surgeon, for example. But stay out of other people's tech jobs. It's not what we do. And it's not more relevant to you than learning cardiothoracic surgery. And I'll tell you, if I was going to learn anything, and I did learn medicine, at least if you know medicine, you know how to keep yourself healthy. And I say this as a joke, and I mean it as a joke, but learning somebody else's tech career is about as valuable as you learning medicine. But at least as medicine, you're going to get something out of it. It's going to help you stay healthy. So I strongly don't recommend you do this. How about you, Alonzo? How would you answer that?
Well, I think the focus, because you're putting cloud architecture into the realm of FinOps, as opposed to understanding that financial architecture is just a facet of what cloud architects may be doing. So focusing on what the tech is, what it does, when you use it, understand how to design architecture for the needs of the business, present it and sell it. That's going to be your focal point. So understand that, and it's less about what CloudWatch is or anything else. It's more about those business transformative viewpoints that you're going to be able to communicate to the leaders. So understand what the cloud architect does first, and then how you're going to be able to fashion those solutions according to what their needs are second.
Absolutely, because FinOps is not like the financial architecture piece we do in the beginning. It's about the cleanup crew and the maintenance after the fact. And that's realistically speaking what we're talking about. I see one of the questions and comments below. So Tyrone, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to send you an image that I took this morning for the next question and comment on the screen. And Tyrone, I know you'll know what to do with it. Okay, Tyrone, it's coming right now. How do I do this? I'm going to send it to you via WhatsApp, Tyrone. TYR. Oh wait. Actually, you know what, Tyrone? I'm gonna send it to you via Slack. See, Chris has all these photos, much easier access to. Let's see. Let me change this to Tyrone TYR. Tyrone SA. Okay, for the next one. And while we're waiting for Tyrone to put on the photo for the next person that asked this question, Tyrone, it should be in your Slack inbox. If you've got any more questions, please pop them in there.
Definitely. Okay, from Zoli, I don't know about you, but I'm with Cindy the cat.
And Zoli, I'm 100% with Cindy the cat. Last night, Cindy was on our cat tree, and she was looking so cute and so sweet. Tyrone will pop that link up there right now. Cindy the cat is very special. She has 2 jobs. In one way, she's like the second love of my life. She sleeps right next to me every single night. She makes sure that there's no lizards inside of my car chasing us around. She cleans the house of all those little things. But Cindy also has a job with regards to Go Cloud Careers. She functions as a troubleshooting coach. She's got paws that are expert at shutting off OpenStack servers and VMware ESXi servers. She's really good at unplugging Ethernet cables with her teeth and her paws. And she does generate a lot of fun and excitement when she pops into classes and talks about things. So Tyrone, if you want to bring Cindy the cat on the cat tree, if you're able to pop that in there. That's my little Cindy the cat.
That must have been after you fed her tons of scallops and shrimp. So she is out like a light.
No, to be fair, Cindy gets fresh shrimp, scallops, and tuna every single day, and I'm crazy enough to cook it for her. So Cindy's always happy, and in the evening, she eats her shrimp and scallops, and then she falls asleep like that. And then when it's time for us all to go to bed, she follows my wife and I to bed, and she sleeps with us. So thank you, Zolly. I do love Cindy the cat too. Cindy's a very important mascot for all of us. So if there's any last questions, ask them right now. I know that Alonzo and I have an action-packed day, but we try to be here to see if there's any questions that you have. So if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, we will end in about 2 minutes unless you guys have more questions. I want to remind you right now that we have a 2-for-1 Memorial Day special. Buy the Cloud Architect Career Development Program and get our Tech Interview Fundamentals program. And it is a strong program to really help you not only get your first cloud architect job, but negotiate a higher salary. There's an incredible amount of training material that's going to help you build your absolute best career. Not only are we giving you the interview program for free, where it's normally $9.99, but we're even giving you 10% off, which is about as big of a discount as we're ever going to be doing, using the coupon code Memorial23. So if you want to become a cloud architect, I strongly recommend you take advantage of this. Join us on Thursday for the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, and we'll literally be doing this on our webinar platform, which means we can have a face-to-face live conversation. You want to know if you're ready? You want me to give you a mini interview? I can do it. We can really do what we need to truly get all the information we need to help you have the absolute best cloud architect career. You'll see me. You'll see my Chief Operating Officer, Chris. You'll see Alonzo, who's an expert at not only cloud architecture, but helping you build an elite brand to help you get hired. And you'll learn a lot, and I promise it'll be a fun time. I love doing them every Thursday. I get to meet people from all over the world. So, thanks so much for coming today. Hope you learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing you in another webinar coming soon. Take care, everybody.
Till next time, everyone. Thanks for coming.